Epstein's emails and the Trump question. According to Slate and the New York Times, the new Epstein files don't just name check Donald Trump. They show Epstein talking about Trump in ways that raise serious questions about what the former president or what the current president knew, getting ahead of myself, what the current president knew and when. In a 2011 email to Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein wrote that Trump spent, quote, hours at my house with one of his victims, calling Trump, quote, dog that hasn't barked. In another exchange, Epstein offers photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen. That's a direct quote from an Epstein email. Now, it should be noted, the journalist in question says he never saw the pictures, it was never sent. And he jokes about Trump almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the. He bragged privately that he alone was able to take Trump down. On Capitol Hill, House Republicans first tried to dodge a full vote on releasing the Epstein files by hiding behind a symbolic oversight committee investigation they controlled, a move meant to shield Trump that instead produced more damning material, including a sexy suggested birthday book page apparently signed by Trump. And in conservative media, the initial reaction was near total silence. Then Fox, Newsmax, and pro-Trump influencers settled on a talking point, claimed that Democrats smeared Trump by redacting Virginia Giuffre's name and insist, despite tens of thousands of pages of new emails, Trump never did anything wrong. Okay, so what's the real message here? More dribs, more drabs coming out about Epstein, and it all makes Trump look bad. When the world's most famous pedophile is caught talking about you constantly, emailing about you, saying he's got dirt on you, it should make everyone sit up a minute and think, wow, this is a much bigger problem than we thought. Let's dig a little deeper here. So it is fascinating to me as a part of my duty to you. I scan a lot of different media all across the landscape, regardless of ideology, all across the ideological landscape. I look at centrist media, the Associated Press, so-called liberal media, MSNBC, but I also look at Wall Street Journal, Fox News, Newsmax, to get a sense of what's shaping our zeitgeist. And it was fascinating to me this week when emails were released about this topic that Republicans and MAGA and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene say is the number one concern of her conservative Republican constituents. It's fascinating to me that the mainstream media kind of played it straight. They released the emails and the documents that came out, summarized them, put a spotlight on the parts that were most newsworthy, which is exactly what they would do. And they have done anytime there's been bad information about Bill Clinton or Barack Obama. That's not what conservative media did. For the most part, they ignored it. Then they did come up with a story, and it was buried as sort of the fifth story on the page. And the positioning of it was Democrats unethically smear the president by releasing documents they should not have released. The whole spin was positioned in a way to say Democrats are bad. Now, I'm not here as a Democrat, a Republican, or a partisan. I'm here as a sane, sensible centrist, trying to give you a sense of what's going on in the world and how to understand it. So, yes, there's all sorts of media biases in the world, but what we have seen dramatic this week is how there is a particular bias in the conservative media, where it's not just that they spotlight problems if they see a Democrat or a liberal or a centrist or someone on the so-called left getting into. Nothing wrong with being a little more enthusiastic about certain stories because it's hitting people you don't like. But this is something very different. This is something where it's the biggest story, not just to centrists and to Democrats and people who don't like Trump, but according to Republican members of Congress, this is the number one story their own constituents care about. And what we're seeing with conservative media today and this week is they are figuratively carrying water for this administration, saying, we're not going to give the juiciest stories our viewers, listeners, readers want. We're going to try to play politics by helping to prop up someone on our team, someone we like. So they're doing a couple of things. They are, first of all, ignoring the story, which is a type of bias when it's a big story. Number two, they're instantly repositioning it to attack the people who are bringing out the news, in this case, Democrats who released the documents, which is kind of bizarre. And the third thing is they're now acting as if they are the defense counsel for the White House. So the point they're harping on is that in one of the Epstein emails, he says that Trump spent hours alone with one of the young girls, and it redacted the name. And the name of the young woman, girl at the time, Virginia Giuffre, has stated on the record in her own memoir that yes, she was passed around, she was forced to have sex with friends of Epstein, but that it wasn't Trump. So you have conservative media essentially saying all this stuff is nonsense. It's all fake news because that's what Trump says. But you have to look at this one piece that is true because she said it wasn't Trump. Therefore, everything else in this email, this one email has to be correct. But all the other stuff that makes Trump look bad, well, that's fake news. You shouldn't use that. That was wrong. The fact that a victim's name was redacted is, again, somehow a sign that Trump was smeared. Now, I play it to you straight. I will say in Trump's favor, this woman who did talk about, I believe it was Prince Andrew and other famous people she was passed around to and forced to have sex with, did say that she was not forced into having sex with Donald Trump and he never did anything. Now, let's put this into context. Trump's own wife, one of his many wives, has stated in official court proceedings that Trump raped her. She later recanted. Now, there are some who are speculating it's so she could get more alimony and more of a payment. Which time do you believe her? One time she said he raped her, another time she said he didn't. So people have been known with enough influence or money to change their tune. But again, I'm being fair. It is a good defense point for Team Trump to say Virginia Giuffre specifically said she was not only not forced into having sex with Trump, but she never saw him do anything that was inappropriate. That is a point in his favor. But you can't cherry pick one point and say, here's of other 10,000 documents, because they make us look bad, we're going to say none of those are legitimate and worthy of talking about. But here's one document that kind of makes us look not as bad. So that's the only thing anyone should talk about. That to me is just bizarre. Now let's look at a few more facts here. So it's Fox, it's Newsweek, it's a lot of influencers. They're ignoring the email and they just talk about it as a smear. They're not listening to their own constituents. This is perhaps the only issue in America right now that truly unites the left and the right, because Democrats are incensed over this, as are a lot of Republicans. For years and years and years, I give credit, it was only Republicans talking about this, that this was a big conspiracy, a cover-up, that there were wealthy, powerful individuals in our country guilty of perversity, of being pedophiles and getting away with it. Well, what do you know? They were right. And this guy Epstein, he had a wide social circle. Let's not kid ourselves. Even though he claimed that Donald Trump was his best friend, he was buddies with Clintons and Bill Gateses of the world. And what's come out this week is all of the emails back and forth with Larry Summers, the former Secretary of the Treasury in the Clinton administration, the former president of Harvard, and a well-known, prominent liberal Democrat. So he looks worse in all this too. He was essentially getting dating advice and women advice in all sorts of constant email back and forth with Jeffrey Epstein. So he's not looking good, but you know what? He's not in office. He's not running for office. Nobody really cares about Larry Summers anymore. But if you want to criticize him, it's certainly fair game. So predictions here. This issue is not going away. Now, right now, the House is supposedly going to vote on releasing all files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, here's where it gets complex. House, it certainly looks like they are going to vote to, now that a newly elected Democratic member of Congress was finally sworn in, there are going to be enough votes to request that the administration release all documents related to Epstein. It then goes to the Senate, where it is anticipated that the Senate will vote to release documents. Because if you're a politician, regardless of what party you're on, you've got so many people saying, release the documents, release the documents, release the Epstein files. It's going to be very hard to say no to that. So here's what happened. It then goes to the president's desk. So he's going to have to deal with a tricky issue. He has his own right to veto the legislation. But how is that going to look when Republicans and Democrats in the United States House and the United States Senate vote to release the Epstein files and the president vetoes it? So that's going to look horrible. That's certainly going to look like an admission of guilt. His other option is he signs it or lets it become law, and then all sorts of additional documents come out that it's hard to imagine there not being more embarrassing documents that make Trump look bad. I'm not saying there's any compelling evidence, clear-cut evidence that he committed illegal acts, but it's really looking suspicious with how he's acting, how he's trying to change the subject constantly. So nothing to look at here. It just thinks like when people ask him about Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted felon, someone convicted of some of the most heinous atrocities known to humanity, trafficking children for sexual purposes. What's his response to her? He says, oh, I wish her well. And then his administration gets her into a much cushier prison. Why would you wish somebody well who is a sex trafficker, aiding and abetting pedophilia, a convicted felon? Why would you wish someone like that well, unless you want them to treat you well and maybe not say anything that makes you look